Hello and many thanks for joining us on this edition of the program People, Politics and Power. I am Imonia Marere. Nigeria's political landscape is often described as a theater of shifting alliances, fierce rivalries, and dramatic power struggles. But in recent years, opposition parties have found themselves gripped by an unprecedented crisis of identity and direction. Infighting, ideological fragmentation, or indeed the lack of ideology, and of course the relentless pursuit of personal ambition have served to undermine their collective strength, leaving them vulnerable and divided. Parties that are historically vibrant voices of dissent and reform now grapple with internal power tussles, defections, and allegations of corruption. The opposition parties' turmoil and disarray threatens not only their electoral prospects, but also the very fabric of Nigeria's democratic system. Can the opposition rise above their turmoil to reclaim their role as credible alternative forces? Or will they succumb to the weight of their divisions? Why do the parties always sink into anomie when they lose out in major elections and other political contestations? Are their troubles rooted in the origin and structure of their formations? Are their problems orchestrated from within or from without, as claimed by some party chieftains? And with the next general elections just 2 years away, can they reform and rebound? These are the issues we will be trying to look at today as we try to examine the state of the political parties in Nigeria. Join me as we seek answers. When we return from this break, we will get to meet our panelists and analysts. Stay with us.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
He's back, this time as the 47th President of the United States of America. As the world holds its collective breath, President Donald J. Trump will be sworn into the Oval Office on Monday the 20th of January. His first term, which ended 4 years ago, was unpredictable and disruptive. What will the next 4 years look like for Americans and the rest of the world? Will President Trump forge a closer relationship with Africa and indeed Nigeria? Will his rhetoric mellow down? Join us on AIT News 24 and AIT as we bring you the swearing-in ceremony of Donald J. Trump as the next President of the United States, live on Monday the 20th of January at 5 p.m. Nigeria time. AIT News 24. All sides, all the time.
The Nigeria of our dream, the Nigeria we need, is the united, indissoluble, and cohesive Nigeria which guarantees equity, fairness, justice, and prosperity for its citizens. That is our focus on people, politics, and power. It is fresh, insightful, impactful. It's a must-watch. People, politics, and power on AIT.
Thank you so much for staying with us, People, Politics, and Power. And today we're looking at the state of the political parties in Nigeria. The political parties are vehicles for attaining political power in any society, in any democratic society. So why are the political parties in Nigeria appear to be performing below par? Well, we will be joined very shortly by Professor Adele Jinodu. Professor Jinodu is a renowned political scientist, a former Vice President, International Political Science Association, and former Executive Director of the Port Harcourt-based Center for Advanced Social Science, CAS. He'll be joining us in a while from his base in Lagos. We will also be joined by Dr. Aminu Idris, who is the head of Political Science Department at the Federal University in Gusau in Northwest Nigeria. Hopefully, he'll be joining us in a matter of minutes. But right here in the studio, I'm joined by my colleague, Mr. Adebayo Bodwin, who is our in-house political analyst. Thank you so much for finding time to join us, Mr.
Thank you very much.
Bodwin.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
So let's begin by asking this question. What is the problem with Nigerian political parties? Why is there so much fracture in the political system or in the political party system in Nigeria, as we have seen in the past couple of months and even years?
Yeah. Let's begin with a challenge, and that challenge has to do with definition of a political party. When we'll agree on what a political party is supposed to be, we now come to the conclusion whether we even have political parties in Nigeria. I used to find one very, very attractive, which was put together online by one of our foremost political scientists. It's attractive to me. It says a political party is a group of people who come together to contest for elections and hold power in government. And he also went further to say that they must show commitment on agreed on some policies with good contents that can help to attain the yearnings and aspirations of the populace. If we settle with that, then the question is that, do we really have political parties in Nigeria today?
That definition seems to narrow the function and role of political parties to just getting power, contesting for power, and getting power.
But
when
they are
have
also to show commitment to certain policies which they will aggregate that will help to achieve the yearnings and aspirations of the populace, particularly the electorate who will vote for them. So, for me, even if you look from that premise, if you look at it, the next question I will ask is that, do we really have political parties in Nigeria? If I look at the parties we have today, let's take an historical excursion into the past. For me, what we have today is what I would describe as the fifth generation of political parties in Nigeria. We have the political parties in the First Republic. You have the Action Group, you have NEPU, you have NPC, NCNC, NNDP, and the others. And then Second Republic, you have PRP, UPN, MPN, MPP, GMPP, and later NAP. And then Third Republic, you have, the aborted Third Republic, you have SDP, NRC. Then within the intervening period between the collapse of the Third Republic and the coming of the Fourth Republic, we also have a set of political parties that were transition parties that did not come full-blown, but people ran elections on them, and so they cannot be complete. I mean, ran election, local government election on them, so they cannot be completely thrown away as if there were no political party. So what we have today are fifth generation of political parties in Nigeria. And for me, I am worried as a political reporter that some of our parties are not behaving like the parties that were in existence in the past. Parties that committed themselves, aggregated the feelings, the needs of the people, and put them forward as a basis to seek their vote. What we have today are politicians who see political parties as mere vehicles to get to power.
A special purpose vehicles to get to power.
To get to power.
Pure
and they are not just getting to power through normal means. They are getting to power in what they call to capture power, as if they were military rulers. So you find aberrations in the way and manner from 1990 days. Yes, parties were formed at the beginning of this Fourth Republic. They were formed, and then people just threw on political parties. There were good ideas that were laid out. But along the line, they derailed. The parties derailed. The parties derailed.
What would you say is responsible for that derailment? If we are to agree that they have derailed, what is responsible for that?
Because we have scarcity or paucity, whichever word we want to use, of people with democratic temperaments in the current dispensation we are going to. Because if they have democratic temperaments, the parties will have internal structures to resolve conflict, as you witness in liberal jurisdictions. What we have in Nigeria today is an illiberal jurisdiction, a situation where parties just exist. Yes, those who started, they started very well. But along the line, those who inherited those political parties have derailed completely. So you find a situation, they are not seeking for power, they are not contesting power on the political party, they want to capture power on the platform of political parties. And they are just looking for tickets. So there's no deep commitment. No party supremacy. Take parties, don't let us even go into the First Republic. Let's take parties in the Second Republic. Take the PRP, for instance. They won election in Kano and Kaduna. And they banned their governors from flirtation with other political parties, that because they want to remain pure. Abubakar Rimi and Balarabe Musa defied the order. The party suspended the two of them. They remained without political party, without governors until the turn of the next election in 1983. That is a time when party will back and bite. But how many political parties can do that one today? Because the means of raising money today is by selling tickets to individuals. It's not a case of whether they show commitment to the party. And you see the high rate of defection. You see just for power that has led to assassinations of individuals. You remember Bola Ige, you remember Harry Marshall, you remember Dikipo, you remember Funshaw Williams, you remember Tajude Adigun, and so many others like that, because of just for power. Those are not people with democratic temperaments. Those are not people who are prepared to contest election, lose election, and accept. They want to stick to power at all costs. And they don't care being PDP today, move to APC tomorrow. Look at the National Assembly. Look at the level of defections we have witnessed within its first 2 years, less than 2 years, of people moving. Look at the configuration as at the time when the Assembly was inaugurated and what we have today. Those are not people who believe in principled politics. So when you don't have principled politics, you don't have politicians with democratic temperaments, then definitely they cannot run political parties.
Will it be true for us to conclude that perhaps the origin, the nature of these political parties, the formation, the way these political parties came into being, or how they were formed, and by those who were formed in the first place, is the root cause of what we're having today?
Exactly. Look, take PDP, for instance. PDP came as an amalgam of what I would call old wine in a new bottle. You have UPN, you have PRP, you have MPN, Adamu Shiroma and co, you have Abamaga Tukru and co, and others, and they came together. They formed what they said then was that they came together to prevent any further military adventurism in politics. Very good idea. But do they have standing principles that bind them together? There are none. You take political parties in the past, there are commitments. I did a study on NEPU when it became 50, for instance. NEPU was Northern Element Progressive Union, founded by 8 young men then as they were, and then they invited Aminu Kano to come and be their leader. There were commitments. There were declarations, what they call Sawaba Declaration. And if you violate it, you may lose your membership of the party. And one example that demonstrated this was when the late Amadou Bello decided to give cars to lawmakers in the Northern Region House of Assembly. They have only 2 members then in the Northern Region House of Assembly. They received the cars. They were expelled as members. Just as the same manner that PRP expelled Balarabe Musa and Abubakar Rimi from their party. Those are times when you have there's some party supremacy. There's a binding principle. What principle is binding those who are in the parties together today? What principle is binding those who are in APC, for example, together, even though they came together from different parties to form the APC? They came as a strong opposition force. They capture power. Can that commitment be there today? What program is APC articulating for the Tinubu government?
All right. Well, Let's welcome our guests who are joining us virtually. Professor Adele Jinodu, a renowned political scientist, is joining us from his base in Lagos. Professor Jinodu, thank you so much for joining us. Hello.
Good afternoon, Imoni. How are you? Happy
Fine,
New Year.
Prof. Thank you. Happy New Year too. It's not too late to tell you Happy New Year. Thank you so much. Let us also welcome Dr. Aminu Idris, who is the head of Political Science Department at the Federal University in Gusau. Thank you so much, Dr. Idris, for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All
I
right.
really appreciate this.
Yes. So we're looking at the state of the political parties in Nigeria today. The very fractious nature, the turmoil and instability that is in the political parties today. Today you hear of resignations, you hear of defections, you hear of carpet crossing, even in parliament and all of that. And you also hear there are rumors of even sitting governors wanting to move from one political party to another. Professor Jinodu, what do you think is responsible for the turmoil in the political parties?
I think a number of factors can be said to be responsible, but I think basically what the previous guest said is true, that there are no principles holding the parties together, and the parties have virtually been captured by what you might call godfathers. The political parties have become like private institutions owned by powerful individuals who've been able to create a vast network that rests on what you call a patron-client relationship. And because of that, you see these shifting allowances, shifting fortunes, and it's a shame, because I think the parties are no longer what they ought to be. They are not. They are, in fact, in what they do, they are direct opposite of what a democratic organization can be. And if they don't reflect democracy in the organization, how much less would that be in terms of the nation? I think and that is why you find that this distinction between a party in government and a party and the what might call the parliamentary section of the party and the national leadership of the party, they are always in conflict most of the time, particularly at the state level. Problem between the governor and the House of Assembly. Governor trying to control what the House of Assembly does, not allowing them to do the proper oversight. So I think basically what you have therefore is that the parties have become private empires. The two parties have become private empires of a group of money, of godfathers, if you like it. And that is why allegiance is not to party principles as such, but to sustenance of the patron who is in power or whom he has put in power, so that they can continue, to what I would call use the state resources as a way of amassing personal wealth for themselves.
Okay, Prof. We'll come back to you in a while, but please, we would like you to adjust your camera properly so that we can see you. The picture at the moment is not very clear.
Is it better now?
Yes. So, in the meantime, let us move over to Dr. Aminu Idris, who is joining us from Gusau. Dr. Idris, thank you for your time once again. I would like to pose that same question to you. Why you think the parties are so unstable at the moment? If you have been following the trend in the past couple of weeks and even months, you see a situation where there are factions and divisions within political parties, not only at the national level, but even at state, local government, and even ward levels. They have parallel executives, they have parallel structures, and all of that. And this is most common with the opposition political parties today. What do you think is responsible for that?
Yeah, okay, let me first of all align myself with the first and the second speaker who happens to be my teacher at the University of Lagos. um, and let me also add that or ask this question as regards whether we have politicians or not. Because parties are run by party supporters and politicians. And if we take into consideration the politicians of the First Republic, can we really say that the present politicians of the Fourth Republic are politicians? And I think that is the first question we need to ask ourselves. I think what we have at the moment, for me, in my own opinion, are nothing other than political entrepreneurs who sees politics more or less like an investment where they invest money in return for profits. In fact, they have this also mindset that political parties are nothing other than investment platforms where you invest in a political party, fund a political party, and control that political party for personal enrichment. So the whole idea is, how do I plot a political party, plot the structure of that political party, and of course, control the delegate of that political party, and of course, appoint candidates for that political party, so that when they get access to political power, I become a king maker. And this whole thing is not about public. It's about investing money and in return expecting profit, not just profits, huge profits. In fact, for them, politics is nothing other than investment. And the easiest investment in Nigeria to make money is investment in politics. And that is how they interpret politics, particularly of the Fourth Republic. And of course, if I want to add also, that if you look at the Nigerian political parties, and of course, no two ways about it, that the quality of democracy is dependent on the quality of political parties. And if you want to measure the quality of political parties, then you have to measure the quality of politicians that control those political parties. And perhaps we know the kind of politicians we have today in terms of integrity and in terms of their track record. And of course, it is not surprising that the whole idea about politics in Nigeria has been reduced to a kind of investment that all you need to do is organize and mobilize some individuals, register a political party, control that political party, not for the benefit of public interest, but for your benefits. And of course, this is what is affecting political parties today. And of course, if you also look at the internal democracies in those political parties, can we really say there is internal democracy in Nigeria, within the Nigerian political parties? Don't forget the scenario in my state, Zamfara State, in the 2019, where an individual sat at the comfort of his office and drafted all the names of the candidates from governor, senators, House of Reps, and even the members of the House of Assembly. But of course, we knew what happened at the Supreme Court. And of course, the Supreme Court says and ruled that, of course, there was no primary election in that political party. And of course, they were not even allowed to participate. They were not even supposed to allow to participate in election in the 2019 general election. And of course, that is alone to tell you that these parties, particularly the two major political parties, are controlled by individuals at the state level and even at the national level. But of course, what we used to have in the past, particularly in the First Republic, is you have the party leader and the party chair and the governor at the level of state. And you have it as the president and the party leader. But what we have in Nigeria today, particularly in this Fourth Republic, is that the governor is the governor, and of course, he's the party leader. He decides whatever happens at the, in that particular party at the state level, and of course, perhaps to some extent, the president is the president and is the party leader of the ruling political party. So the president decides everything that has to do with that political party. So if really this is the kind of political parties we have, that have taken away powers from the party members and from the party delegate to certain individuals. Can we truly call them political parties? And I think my answer is as good as yours.
Yeah, so that's a big question. That's a big question. What you are suggesting, Dr. Idris, is that we have strong political figures but weak political parties with weak structures and systems.
Exactly. In fact, I think beyond that, political parties are not just, by their functions, are not just mere machineries through which we recruit political leadership. You ask yourself question, what happened to quality representation? This is one of the core functions of political parties. What happened to social organization? This is another core function of political parties. You ask yourself, what happened to uh, interest articulation and interest aggregation? This is another function of political parties. But of course, because we have reduced politics to mere making money venture, nobody talk about all those functions. I think the whole consideration is now on fielding candidates, having access to power, and enjoy the benefit that comes with power, appointment and contracts. And perhaps this is the reason why we have, I think, the highest level of corruption in the history of Nigerian republics ever. Of course, if you agree with me, in fact, Nigeria is making the highest money ever in terms of revenue. But measure that in terms of quality of life of Nigerians, in terms of security and welfare. In fact, you cannot tell me that you can compare the quality of life of Nigerians in the Fourth Republic and that of the Second Republic. It's not possible. You cannot compare the quality of security Nigerians enjoy in the Second or First Republic with what Nigerians enjoy in this Fourth Republic. I come from the Northwest, where, in fact, I can say it's what some people refer to as, I think, ungoverned space. In fact, hardly if you live in the Northwest today that you can go home and sleep with your two eyes closed. Never. You can't dare do that. On transit from one point to another, you keep praying that God will take you to your destination safely. Think about poverty. Think about illiteracy. Think about level of unemployment, particularly in northern Nigeria. In fact, in my geopolitical zones, there are people that ask us this question. I mean, this democracy we're practicing today, when shall it come to an end?
All right, let's bring back Professor Adele Jinodu now. Dr. Idris has put so much on the table to talk about. Now, one is tempted to ask, Prof, whether or not the fractious nature of these political parties in Nigeria today is peculiar with the presidential system of government. Because historically, you have seen that under the parliamentary system of government, and in fact, to some extent, in the Second Republic, there were party structures that held every member accountable. Whether you are president, whether you were a member of parliament, whether you were a governor, you were responsible to the leadership of the party. But between 1999 and today, it appears there has been a shift. We have seen a situation where the president is the leader of the party, the governor is the leader of the party in each of these states. And that appears to have contributed to the divisions and fractious nature of these political parties.
No, I will agree with you to some extent. But what is more fundamental for me is that if you look at the trend in our politics since the early 50s, say, for example, since the 1954 Literature Constitution, two fundamental factors have shaped the development of our political parties, and they still continue to do so till today. One, of course, is that our politics, right from the early 50s has been transactional. Transactional in the sense that people see politics as a way of amassing money, as a way of making money. And 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 competitive politics has also been viewed in the context of using government resources to win elections. I think that is clearly the trend that has continued up to today. And it is still very much part of our politics in terms of people using politics simply as a way of amassing personal wealth. You know, whether you like it or not. I mean, under between 1957 and 1962, 63, two major inquiries were undertaken in this country. First, the Foster Sitting Tribunal, and then the Coca Tribunal, which both of which show how political parties use state resources to amass personal wealth and to create war chests to fight elections. That has continued to today, and it's on a grander scale now. The second one is that, unfortunately, since the early 50s, we have not had a national leader, somebody who cuts across ethnic groups. In fact, the political parties have essentially been more or less coalitions of various ethnic groups fighting fighting elections at the federal level, but they're essentially ethnic-based parties. Now, and that has continued up to today. An attempt was made under the Murtala Obasanjo Mohammed regime, the Murtala Obasanjo regime, to make parties national in outlook. That did not work. The IBB administration also tried to make parties reflect national, to be not, again, that has failed. And that is why our political parties are simply now coalitions of various fractions of the elite of the major ethnic groups, the various ethnic groups fighting politics. So we have not really had a national leader in the sense in which you can talk about an Nkrumah or a Jomo Kenyatta or Thabo Mbeki in. So that has been basically the problem. Now, what has even happened now is that the political parties have in fact become irrelevant. I was talking to somebody last week. He said, for example, I mean, parties don't have register of party members at the local level. So even primaries to elect party leaders becomes problematic because there are no credible registers of party members to take part in primaries. So it's just a matter of the big man who puts money down, who can buy votes, or who now puts the money down, and they also put money down to run the party. Parties are not run through contributions by party members. Even in the 50s and early 60s and early First Republic, party membership, people don't pay their party. So the parties rely on money that they can use, they can get out of government by being in power, to use that money to fund their political parties and to also accumulate money corruptly to advance their own political positions. And that is where we are today. So I think that is the fundamental problem that I think we have had. This origin in terms of the corrupt enrichment, and it goes back to the 50s. If you look at the papers being released recently, the British were very worried about the use of party machinery, of state machinery, for personal enrichment by politicians and also to fund their political parties. That has continued up to today. So I think the problem then is that the concept of the party has not really taken roots in terms of the concept of a mass party in which members believe they belong and they're able to, they put money down for that purpose. And I mean, tell me which under the present system, political parties start from the ward level where you have ward committees, and that is where you register as a party member. There is no such register at the ward level. It's always problematic. They cannot bring the party's register out. And when you say who are the who are the financially active members. They don't have it. So I think that unless we missed the road because there was an attempt, the whole concept of the grassroots political party was meant to make parties have a commitment, and members have a commitment to their party by actually funding their parties. But that is no longer the case. There was the old concept that the state itself should invest in democracy by providing money for political parties and building, for example, party headquarters in every local government in every state as a way of showing that the state has an investment in it, so the party is not taken over by godfathers. But that has failed. So I think we are in this terrible situation now where there is this history over the time of the monetization of parties and the tribalization of parties. So,
Okay.
I mean, the whole question, what divides the major parties today is this whole question of the zoning. Let's turn by turn. It's not a matter of who is the best man to lead us to win elections. No, it is the zone of our turn. It is the turn of our ethnic group. And yet that is not in the Constitution. Federal character is not zoning. Federal character is for question of appointments, not for election. Make sure that public offices are not controlled by a particular ethnic group or combination of ethnic group. But our politicians have turned that Chapter 2 provision, they have turned it into zoning, which means that if the North produces the president this cycle, the next electoral cycle, it should be the turn of the South. But when you then ask the question, if it is the turn of the North, which state from the North is it going to be? Or in case of, is it the Southeast, the Southwest to produce? And they start among themselves.
Okay,
We
Prof.
saw that carrying out in the PDP. Well, okay, even if you zone, yeah.
Yes, we're sorry about that, Prof. We appear to be
Hello?
having some little challenges with your network. We're barely hearing your audio. But while we try and rectify that, Mr. Bodwin, I'd like you to comment on what Prof has said. Is it a lost case? I mean, we have another major election coming up in another 2 years. And is it a lost case today? Can the parties reform themselves? Can they rebound the way they are now? There's hardly any state today where you do not have crises and problems in most of the political parties.
Well, the parties can reform themselves if they stick rigidly to rules they made for themselves. Take PDP, for example. It institutionalized the culture of zoning. And people are supposed to be, if the last election, that is the root of the crisis that is plaguing the party today, is as a result of no adherence to the zoning principle of the PDP. And if you look at the chairmen that have emerged, you have had chairmen from South-South, like Secondus. You have had 5 chairmen from North Central alone for PDP. You have two chairmen from Southeast. You have 2 chairmen from Northeast. So a situation where you have that kind of an arrangement, and you say you are supposed to institutionalize, even zoning is even observing breach. As at the time the election took place that produced Yoshia Ayu, the zone that's supposed to produce the national chairman of PDP then was Southwest. But because those who owns the party, like Prof has attested to, those who owns the party has a feeling that they can dictate where such chairmen will emerge from. And that is exactly what they did. And when the man was not doing their bidding, what happened next? They shoved him aside. So till today, the party doesn't have organized, what we could call cohesive leadership. What we have is an acting national chairman. And even the rule of the party is also being obeyed in breach. What the Constitution says is that in a situation where the chairman, like the removal of Nwodo, which brought in somebody from the southeast, if somebody is removed today, it's somebody from that zone that will replace to complete his tenure. So for PDP, for instance, the chairman naturally has, if they even fail the last convention, for instance, the national chairman supposed to come from the North Central. But it didn't happen, because if you witness the case of Gemade Adwogbe and Amadou Ali, they replace each other. So, but this is a situation where it's not. So the party will have opportunity to rebound, to reform itself, if they obey the rules they made for themselves. But because the party is owned by individuals who control the party, a situation where some governors will come together, put money together, and invite another person from another political party to take over the leadership of a political party. It's not a situation where they want to rebound, as it happened in PDP, where Senator Ali Amadou was brought in from an opposition party to become the national chairman of PDP. And then the same governor, because he was not doing their bidding, started fighting him. So these are issues, but we are operating a multi-party democracy. Those who are genuinely interested in Nigeria advancing politically, those who are ensuring, who are interested that we migrate or move from this level of illiberal democracy to liberal democracy, where there will be internal mechanism to resolve conflict before its escalation. Those who will ensure that party commit themselves to programs with which they will woo the candidates. Those who will ensure that the party generate policies for the government they put in place should ensure that they rise at now before the election in 2027.
All right. Dr. Idris, let's bring you in now. Is there a way out here?
Well, I think I doubt very much, because the so-called political parties have been taken over by political entrepreneurs. These are billionaires that made money in politics, and they wouldn't want to give up such opportunity. When you have a situation where you have a party structure and you have a government and everything is collapsed under the leadership of one man, and I think it will be very difficult for the political parties to rescue themselves from these individuals. In fact, no matter how good you are today, no matter how credible you are today, if you cannot boast of billions to finance an election into a particular office, no party leadership will gamble its ticket for you. So party tickets are always for the highest bidders. This implies that we have monetized Nigerian party systems to an extent that the Nigerian parties, particularly at the control level, is only for the rich. And of course, if you look at history, 65 out of the 65 years of Nigeria's independence, the military ruled for 29 years. And Fourth Republic, when we decided to make a return to civil rule, we handed over power to what I call civilian military. And of course, many of them were governors, senators, House of Reps, and the rest of that. And they came to this politics with this military hangover of superiority that, look, everything must be decided by them, particularly the governors, and of course, perhaps the president. It is obvious, and it was on record, how President Obasanjo treated party leaders under his dispensation, and how the individual governors, particularly with military background, treated their party chairman at state level. And I think we still have many of these individuals in office. And I think one of our fundamental challenges is that if you look at the political terrain in Nigeria, the politics, the leaders of the 1999 are still the leaders of today and are plotting to be the leaders of tomorrow using the same party machineries. They planted their voice all over, And they believe that with the amount and with the resources at their disposal, there is nobody can come close to them to take over the control of those political parties. So I think, first and foremost, how do we demonetize party politics? That is the big question. And how can we do that? When everything has been commodified in Nigeria, including votes. We have seen, even during the last election, how votes are traded for spaghetti, how votes are traded for rappers, how votes are traded for 1,000 to 5,000 naira. So the mindset of the political parties is you must have politics, you must have money, and you must be financially capable to finance election. And I think it is not about campaigning. It is about how much do you have to settle electoral officials? How much do you have to pursue cases in court? How much do you have to buy votes? How much do you have to settle the security agencies? How much do you have to settle every stakeholder on election or before election and after election day? So with this kind of mindset and mentality of the leaders that control political parties, it will be difficult for you to democratize political parties. It will be difficult for us to entrench and introduce internal democracies in these parties, where we take power back to the party members through the delegate system. Prof. Adele made a submission that even at the ward level, you hardly find party register. And it is for one obvious reason, that of course, they want to keep it to themselves so that they can determine who become a party delegates. And don't forget, it is the party delegates that elects or that selects the party candidates or flag bearers. And of course, the elites at the party level wants to determine everything that has to do with the freedom of candidates so that they can have their interests protected when this individual gets to the political offices. They can have their way as regards contracts, as regards appointment. And I think this is one of the reasons why we continue to have crises in different states. We have seen that in Rivers, we have seen that in Kano, and many other states today in the country, where you have the governors and the shadow governors, just like more or less ministers and the shadow ministers, ministers in parliamentary system of government, where you have a sitting governor and somebody who employs his election using his resources is somewhere determining who become what, who gets what, when, and how. And I think with this kind of mindset, with this kind of individuals at the helm of affairs or at the helm of our political parties, then can we really say that we can begin to think of having political parties in the future?
All right.
I think that would be extremely difficult.
Thank you so much, Dr. Idris. Let's get to Professor Jinodu now for your last take. What impact will this have, or is it having, on the entire democratic system in Nigeria moving forward?
No, I think, the future is not that bad. It's not that bleak. If Nigerians take more interest in politics and take the citizenship duty seriously, I think, and I think this cannot last for long, forever. And you can see within the political parties, you can see some realignments going on. But I think the problem now is that how can you now just bring in an external outside link to more or less let that contradiction, the division, become more and more open and irretrievable. And that is why I think you and I, we have that responsibility to do that. But two things worry me. Two things worry me as we move ahead towards 2027. Elections, it is not just on election day that election is bought by giving voters 2,000 naira, 3,000 naira. In fact, that whole process has begun now of buying election in 2027 through procurement exercises by the various parties that control governments at the federal and state level. The procurement process is one in which they look ahead and save build up a war chest to fight the elections. And I think groups like the EFCC and others should take more interest in that in the election procurement process as we move towards 2027. Now, part of this building war chest, two things are also important, apart from the use of state resources to war chest for elections. Two that really disturbed me during 2025, the amount of money that came from outside the country in foreign currency.
Oh, wow. We seem to have lost contact with Professor Adele Jinadu there, but Adebayo Bodrin very quickly, in less than 60 seconds. Prof says that the situation is not as bleak as we appear to paint it, that this situation is redeemable.
Yeah, it's from two planks. The first plank is the willingness of more Nigerians, those I've said so before, those who are concerned, those who love Nigeria, to see how we can retrieve this system from the hands of the political entrepreneurs and ensure that
do they exist?
Well, there are
current dispensation.
There are younger Nigerians that are coming up. They should not stay aloof. The first republic we are talking about as a reference point, those who are appointed who took over positions then were younger people. The late Batama Sule became Minister of Mines at the age of 27. So Nigerian youth must not be interested in becoming party supporters and political thugs. They must be interested in their country. And then the second leg is that we need sincere electoral process that will facilitate credible election. A situation where we look, Awolowo made one statement in 1978, and till today, I keep on thinking about it. He said, you can rig election, which Prof spoke about. You can rig election 40 years ahead. And like he said, the process of procurement has started. Those are things that we need to stop.
Right.
There are institutional riggings that do take place in Nigerian election. We must all rise as citizens of Nigeria and prevent it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adebayo Bodrin. Adebayo Bodrin is our in-house political analyst, and he was joined by Dr. Aminu Idris, who is the head of the Department of Political Science at the Federal University in Gusau. Dr. Idris, thank you so much for your time and, of course, for your views. We also had Professor Adele Jinadu, a renowned political scientist, former Vice President, International Political Science Association, and former Executive Director of the Port Harcourt-based Center for Advanced Social Sciences, CAS. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time and for your contributions on the program today.